I'm Jason Kingston, founder director of Cube Thinking. We work closely with the Hartree Centre, our clients get involved with the Hartree Centre, and we're also working in a partnership with the Hartree Centre as well on healthy homes. In other words, we're big fans of the Hartree Centre. So what I'd like to do is to introduce you to the panel, and I'll start from my left, please, if that's okay.
Yeah, so hi, John Hague. I'm Head of Clean Future Science and Technology for Unilever's Home Care Business Group. So that's all about bringing the next generation of science and technology to the world of cleaning. And we've got to do it in a way that is going to be sustainable, affordable, and still performs. So that's quite a challenge. We'll come back to that. My other responsibility that's relevant is I'm Chair of the Innovation Board for the Liverpool City region, which is why I was after Mark there and say, come on, build your quantum computer here. And I think I'm the person who signed the first agreement between Unilever and Hartree, probably back in 2015. So there's a picture of me on the internet signing the first agreement between Unilever and Hartree.
That's fantastic, thank you.
And I'm Kate, and I'm the Hartree Centre Director.
Thank you very much.
So Peter Waggett, Director of Research for IBM. Been involved with Hartree now since that first agreement, I think, that was signed, so feeling my age a bit now. But my real research interest has always been around how new and emerging technologies get take-up and adoption by industry. So there's no better place to play in that space than with the Hartree, because we're really about people coming to us with problems and us converting those problems into solutions using the most appropriate technologies, and then ensuring that they actually deliver against the promises. So that's me.
Hi, I'm Annemarie Naylor. I'm Director of Health Tech and Innovation Growth at the Civic Health Innovation Labs, which is a relatively new centre set up within the University of Liverpool. And I'm a big fan of the Hartree, like everybody else, but this is in fact my first visit to the centre. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
You've been digitally with your sleeves rolled up for a good while though, haven't you? Now, in the theme of everything being all heavily digital, I've got my post-it notes to decode and just to keep the core questions on. And I'm going to kick-start with the first question to the panel, please. This is an open question to the panel, but if you can all answer individually, that would be lovely. So fastest finger first, I guess. What do you think are the biggest impacts to be seen from artificial intelligence, data-driven and emerging technologies in the sectors that you work in? And I'm not making eye contact with anybody in particular, so I'm rotating like this. But whoever would like to ask, whoever would like to answer first, sorry.
Well, I'll kick off because I'll give these guys a little bit of thinking time. I think the biggest thing we're going to see is in pharmaceuticals and material science. I think that's the area where you get the biggest impact and the biggest bang for your buck at the moment, because it's so expensive to develop new materials. So that's why I think that that area is where we're going to see the biggest impact.
So is that with regards to almost creating those digital twins?
Yeah, so the way that it tends to, and I'll hand over to John, who is actually the expert next to me here.
No pressure there then.
But generally, you wouldn't do wet chemistry in the labs because it takes too long to go through all that chemistry and churn it through. So the best way to do that is actually to look to model it in silica, in the computer environment, come up with your top, say, 5 or 10 molecules that you want to try out, and then use it in the wet lab. But perhaps I'll hand to John.
Yes, all right. So I'll at least try and dimensionalise the problem. So if you think of it, and we'll go with cleaning products because everybody uses them. So you're all using, I'm sure, Persil and Domestos, and other brands are available, but never mind those. Look, I mean, the biggest environmental footprint in terms of greenhouse gas in Unilever is the chemicals we use in our cleaning products. So that's quite a statement, isn't it? So our greenhouse gas footprint is to do with the making of the chemicals and their biodegradation. It's not the bit that we do, the manufacture. It's the scope 1 and 2 and then the scope 3 emissions. So for us to get to net zero, we've got to reduce the impact of those chemicals by roughly 95%. So that means you've got to get 95% more effective if you're going to deliver superiority in your cleaning, continue to be affordable, and deliver on your greenhouse gas commitments. So that's a massive ask, isn't it? I mean, we're used to incremental improvements where we might get a small gain in performance and get superiority. We've got to do 95% improvement so that we can use 95% less if you go by a weight efficiency argument. The only way you're ever going to do that is to bring to bear the power of high performance computing artificial intelligence. One example I can give you right now is well, it's not actually with the Hartree, this one, but it's a public domain one, so I can speak about it. We're partnering with a company called Arzeda in the US. They're a protein engineering company. They use machine learning to create new protein structures. So the things that do the cleaning in a lot of our cleaning products are enzymes. So with those guys, we're creating enzymes that are far, far, far more effective than you can find in nature. So you've got basic synthetic enzymes that you can code the DNA for and then start to turn into physical reality. But the whole thing starts by designing an enzyme in a computer using some data, also a lot of known structures and machine learning. So that's one example of how we're actually transforming the way we're doing materials discovery for exactly the purpose you talked about. And the real pressing concern for us is we need that massive uptick in performance, otherwise we'll never crack our net zero challenge.
Fantastic examples.
Oh, sorry, just following on from that, I mean, one of the things that, we've all seen the past couple of years, things like pandemics coming through, things like climate change, we have to respond to those sort of challenges that are coming through. And, to date, scientific methods being our way forward. We put forward hypotheses, we test them, we move forward, we iterate around and we get things going. And really, what we found over the past few years is that we need a big step change increase in that process. So we need to do things 10 times quicker. We need to do things at 10 times a tenth of the cost. And those sort of like parameters have been driving us around a lot of the projects that we're doing at the Hartree. So we're throwing the best tool set we can at it. So, looking through scientific literature is an immense volume. How do we actually use AI to enable us to pick out the relevant bits that are responsible for a particular problem and move forward on that space? How do we use AI to simulate and generate hypotheses that we can test at scale? And all the way through, we can look at these different technologies. Quantum, clearly, a lot of the stuff that we're doing is physical or chemistry based, and so we need to be able to use quantum, and we're using quantum on some of the solutions we're developing to date. And it's all about trying to pull this whole thing together. And if we get it right, and we think we have, we're talking about 10 times quicker and a tenth of the cost.
Fantastic, great examples. Thank you.
So I think your question either wants me to be Nostradamus or get enthusiastic about them, just the sheer vast range of possibilities across the health and care kind of tech sector. If I look back about 5 years, when I was consulting them for Oxford University for their National Consortium of Intelligent Medical Imaging, it was exciting this morning to wake up, if anyone else is a geek at that hour of the day and is listening to the Today programme as it kicks off, as many will be. So it was exciting to hear about the fruits of their labours 5 years later, to be hearing about the fact that we found AI that can now discover with 12% more accuracy than any human being as a radiologist breast cancer in scans where we've got an acute workforce shortage. So it seems to me that if you want me to cast ahead, I think take your bets on which thing goes first in health and care technology. But I think what we can say for sure is it will transform the workforce challenge that we currently face across both health and social care. So for me, that's the biggest impact it can possibly have. And I think if you look back to a couple of days ago, the Shadow Chancellor gave a kind of indication of the opposition's economic positions coming forth in the manifesto later this year. She was very clear that we need to solve issues around childcare in relation to helping women back to work. But women don't just look after children, they look after older people as well. So the more that we can apply the new and emerging technologies to care, the more we can engender inclusive growth, it seems to me. So endless possibilities, but predominantly around workforce and inclusive growth.
Absolutely, fantastic. Fantastic examples there, and if I can just chuck a couple in myself, if I may. We work closely with high-performing SMEs and housing associations, and I think the opportunities from an AI perspective, they're particularly strong from the customer experience, particularly with regards to opportunities for predictive analytics, looking for elements within the sector. Selfishly for us as a consultancy, certainly see value with regards to the number when we're generalists, so we're always trying to seek information from all over the show, and maybe we see the right things, maybe we don't. So it would increase our lens considerably also. Post-it number 2. Let's see what the next question is that we've got to reveal. It's like a grand reveal this now. So we've got the challenges of adopting digital technologies for your sectors. Annemarie, I want to kickstart with yourself first of all, please, on the health tech perspective. So these are the challenges. It probably picks up a little bit on what you were saying with that little bit of a concern with regards to from the gender equality side and whatnot. But other areas that you would see as challenges from a health tech's perspective?
So again, these are vast,
Yeah.
potentially.
And it's as much as your imagination may
Yeah.
wish, I guess.
But I think really usefully, if people took note of Edelman's Trust Barometer that was reissued, the latest edition last week, it's quite clear that general surveys internationally in developed countries, but particularly comparing the UK attitude in comparison to the US, Europe and the Far East, we're incredibly sceptical now after the last 15 years of various crises of different kind, whether it's financial, Brexit, pandemic, etc. We're incredibly sceptical about the potential for technology to engender progress in a positive way. So it seems to me that the biggest risk we face potentially is that people won't go with us. They won't see what's in it for them, and in a sense could act as a brake on progress. So there's a need for us to work very closely with communities across the Liverpool City region and further beyond in terms of Hartree's work and STFC, to ensure that people understand what this technology can do and how it is not a risk to us in the way that some media hype and headlines of recent months have perhaps not been so helpful. But I think we also have to be clear about what the attendant risks do look like so that people walk in with their eyes open. So I think it's that taking people with us and making sure they know it's for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw it to a lesser degree, but similarly, in all sectors, I saw the advent of the adoption of digital. Incredibly vague, but it was exactly the same. I remember working with boards on digital literacy, digital maturity, and you could compare that with AI literacy, AI.
And I think that,
maturity
to be clear, that's not just across communities at large. That is very much within our health and social care workforce. So if we want rapid take-up, we can invent and develop fantastic technologies, but we need people to be upskilled and confident about using those technologies as we develop them in tandem, or that too will slow us down.
Correct. And I think one of the joys of being here, the way I've always viewed the Hartree Centre, and I think increasingly so when we look in terms of AI, is an honest broker.
And that's what we want to be. When I talked a bit earlier today about being that trusted innovation partner, Hartree will tell you whether your industrial challenge can be solved by the technology that you are hoping to use. And we do often get people wanting to use quantum, and we do often say no AI or no, actually machine learning. You don't need to go for the most complicated technology to answer your problem. And we need you to be using that technology in a way where you feel confident about it. So I do absolutely agree with Annemarie. This is all about people. This is more about people than technology. The technology is here. We know how to use it. We've had a fantastic talk earlier today around quantum and where PsiQuantum are going. And that's coming along, and we can figure out how to use it already. We're just waiting for that technology to just tip over to become industry ready. But it's about the people. At the end of the day, we need to educate. We need communities to be data literate and compute literate in what they can do with these things. Because if they're not, we just get to fear, and fear is not the best way to use technology.
A digital journey should be a human journey.
Yes, I feel it's at the heart of everything.
Yeah, we see certainly when we're working with organisations, the most likelihood of getting the correct digital solution is actually when you don't look for a solution to place to solve a problem, but actually what's the problem you're trying to solve from a business analysis point of view, and then you can weave it through and make sure that it's synchronised onto there. Just want to keep this within the group with regards to from a manufacturing perspective. So what do we see as the challenges from a manufacturing perspective?
So I don't think I'm going to be able to answer a supply chain based question. I can talk about challenges of digital adoption in an organisation like ours. I think there are a couple of cases. So first off, I think hype not meeting reality. Not organisations in this room, might I add, have done this to us, but there's been quite a number of occasions where people have come with solutions and the promise was nowhere near the actual capability and delivery. And I think we've got to get away from that, because that really does make people turn off from digital solutions. And when a digital solution gets in, and it'll be the same with artificial intelligence, because we've seen the early stages of that getting things wrong, but when these solutions get in and then they disappoint, that's a big problem. It's a really big problem. And we've had a few cases like that. So I think we got to really make sure that we're using them for the things that actually make life quicker, faster, better, more convenient for people in companies. Otherwise, it's hell to adopt and morale drops. So I think we've got to be really careful on that.
It's a good PR, in a way, for AI and communication.
Well, it can be,
Yeah.
but you know, the risk is that people oversell it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's happening.
And we need to manage expectations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
most digital transformation started to get good at that with regards to managing expectations, and it's not a silver bullet. And I guess we probably need to have similar from an AI perspective as well. Thank you.
I think, really, again, coming back to what we're doing here at the Hartree, what we're trying to do is get informed consumers. People that understand the AI, what it can do, what it's good at, and how you put that in place. So, you come to us for training. So that's particularly at sort of like people that are running businesses, and then it gives them the insight to understand where AI can be applied to make their a case. So the training aspect of what we do here is vital. Then they come to us with a problem. They're not quite sure whether we've got the right solutions for it, but we take them through that journey and produce them a proof of concept. That proof of concept doesn't just give them the technical solution, it gives them the business parameters to enable them to make informed decisions. And then, we can help them on that journey to actually incorporate it into their sort of like setup. So, for us, that journey is important. At the end of it, we get our customers that, are able to understand AI, know where to use it, and make sure they get the benefits from it. And that enables us to, keep these customers going. Probably, slightly cynically, but probably about 90% of what's out in the marketplace described as AI isn't AI. And, what we need to do for the bits that are left is actually understand which are the bits that are worth doing. Now, again, we're trying to encapsulate that in a lot of products. So another part of IBM's mission is to build, AI products. And, our Watson X product is built around the premise that we need to put governance of the AI into the system. We need to have governance of the data that feeds into the system. So we've got complete audit trails. We understand what's going on. So, we're not just putting our faith in a black box. We're actually making informed decisions on the way through. So, yeah, for us, the Hartree is an ideal place to take people with no understanding from AI, take them right the way through the journey, and get them, hopefully, evangelists and pushing it out around the rest of their sectors.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. On to question 3. Now then, I've got 2 names in the frame for this particular question, Kate and Peter. So, fastest finger first, I guess. So, in reference to AI and quantum, you're going to like this one. How do you explain your job? I feel like I'm on Mr. and Mrs. here now. How do you explain your job to family and friends?
I always explain it to my mum and dad. I mean, I'm lucky because my dad was actually in technology from the very early days, from punch cards, because he was a programmer and he used punch cards, which some of you will remember. Many of you in this room looking at you, looking completely blank, have no idea what I'm talking about. But anyway, so, but I explain it is about using the latest tools to change the way we do things. And that's the same if you look at the Industrial Revolution, you look at the first computer revolution. Let's think back to my day at school when calculators came along and we had a big fuss about whether or not we let kids use calculators or not, and it'll get rid of mental arithmetic. Well, it never did. You still have to be able to add up. You still have to understand the concept of mathematics. Calculators help, it's a tool, and this is how I explain what we do here at Hartree. We've got new and improved and exciting tools out there that we can help people with.
Good answer. Great answer. Over to your good self.
So I'm now very depressed because I started my computing on punch cards, and so I'm now equated to Kate's dad. So that's fine.
I remember the punch room. Yeah, the punch room.
So for me, I bore my family incessantly with how the fact that we're reinventing the world. We're trying to make things better, faster, quicker, and they're incredibly unimpressed. But that may be just my family. So that's it. But I mean, the serious point is that the huge excitement there is around the place here, the buzz, the thought of what we can do with some of the projects that we get customers coming in with us is just incredible. So I think it's the best job out there.
Brilliant answer, thank you. Now, Annemarie, you said that you explained it to the taxi driver on the way here.
So what did I explain? I said that I had a very mixed background. So I think professionally it's called hybrid professional. My CV basically spans public, private, third sector, and I ran my own company, and now I'm working for a university. So I've tried everything once, if not twice. And so how do I explain that? Most of the work that I've done has been focused on economic development, whether as a civil servant or working closely with communities. And then I found that that was a bit limiting because communities 10, 15 years ago at least, I'm that old, not punch cards, but that fairly old. And so, but I've basically encountered that community organisations were struggling to engage and civil society was struggling to engage with the digital revolution that was really being led by the public and private sectors. So my passion in going self-employed for some time was to support communities to deliver their own broadband and Wi-Fi networks and put them in and understand how they worked. It was to develop digital social enterprises and to work with them to understand how data could benefit communities. And now I find myself full square sitting in the Civic Health Innovation Labs working with the Civic Data Cooperative for the Liverpool City region, which is perfect. So in the way to explain it, I said in short form to the taxi driver that brought me today, I did explain that I'm here, I suppose, to help people to gain the skills they will need, to gain the jobs we will create, hopefully working together, all of us, so that they can be fully participative in a 21st century society. Without that aspiration, we leave people behind, and I think we've seen what the impact of that looks like.
Correct. And I think we can learn lessons of that from in the past as well, can't we? And just make sure it's as inclusive as we can as we go, exactly. And leave nobody behind and raise rock bottom. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Question to yourself as well then, with regards to how would you describe AI?
Oh, gosh.
Round the family table.
Oh, all right. I thought you meant to
other
give a
tables are
definition.
available, of course.
So I think if my son were here now, he'd probably do a better job of describing AI to me than I could to him. I mean, he's pretty well-rounded and has a good grasp of what's going on in the world. But I think he would say, ultimately, a machine that can think independently and solve problems unguided by humans. I think that's probably what he would say to me, or I would say that sounds about right.
I think that'd do well on a pub quiz, that one. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer, thank you. And I think just to add in at this point, I've got a post-it note here just to ensure we draw attention to the benefits of working with STFC, Hartree, HNCDI, so this is plug time training, Innovate UK, Bridge AI as well. So that was an important post-it note, but I think an important points to know. Have I missed anything out on there?
No, I think what we're saying here is there's a whole raft of programmes that Hartree work on. HNCDI is the Hartree National Centre for Digital Innovation with our colleagues at IBM, so we work in partnership there. That's a funding pot that people can come. It's free at the point of access for organisations to come and work with us with that. Our hubs are part of that programme. And then we've got other programmes like Bridge AI, it's mostly for, I think, startups and the small side of the SMEs.
And for myself, from my company, was when we've worked with yourselves, we found it a really pleasurable partnership experience. Is it following in the same process with regards to you have the idea, you have the engagement, and then you start working it through to actually shaping it to a proper, tangible act?
It should be co-designed,
yeah.
Because if you're not assured of the technology, then we can help you design it around, just come with the challenge, don't worry about the technology, and we'll fit the technology to solve your challenge. That's what Hartree's here all to do.
That's certainly what we've found with regards to, we would have had the clay in mind, but then the shaping of the clay and the magic hands of that then came. It was the Hartree's hands which helped shape the clay on there. Thank you for that. So, question 4, final of the formal questions before we all go freestyle. So, Annemarie, picking on you a little bit here, but in a positive way with your social science background, ethical or responsible AI? So how are we going to ensure, we spoke about we need to check for it, but how are we going to ensure, and it's not just a loaded question to you, we're going to look at it ourselves, all of us, with regards to the ethics and the areas that we need to make sure that we're not blind spotted to from an AI perspective?
So I think it's appropriate that you ask a social scientist rather than a philosopher. But the good news being, at least working within the context of the university, we're able to draw across multidisciplinary kind of input to thinking about what are very new and emergent challenges that I think we're all beginning to grapple with, but can't possibly know what we need to do exactly next with. One of the biggest challenges I think we need to acknowledge is that looking across the city region, if you look at national reports and international reports, people from developing countries or people from more manual job backgrounds are less susceptible to AI and automation in the very near future. But the ones who are women. And if we equally look at so they're the most susceptible, but if we equally look at the flip side and say who works in AI, 80% of people working in AI around the world are men. So boys, you're automating our jobs and we mean to come join you and compete, is what I'm here to say, I suppose. So from an ethical perspective, you can look at this in myriad ways. So we can look at what the harm could be in deploying particular data-driven technologies and AIs in relation to particular cohorts and target groups that we might want to work with and see ourselves as trying to benefit, but again, need to take them with us, as we were talking about earlier on. But we also need to think proactively. The Liverpool City region is about to be in receipt of significant funds linked to its investment zone, which is a very exciting and brilliant opportunity for everybody to work together in an open innovation ecosystem. But we need, I think, to be very thoughtful about what we assist industry to automate at pace and what the impacts or unintended consequences might be for our communities across the city region, and think ahead, how do we tie up the sort of support we're offering to make sure. So there are ethics in terms of pure philosophical ones, which I can't speak to, and then there are ones about economic development. And I think just to add that this comes back to the earlier point really about thinking there are so many opportunities to free women's time up in relation to care, whether that's childcare or elder care. We're very keen to establish a national test bed in relation to social care, and we're already in good discussions with Hartree colleagues about how we can tie up and work on that together. We think there is a lot of competition for health tech across the country. We think with facilities such as these we're very well placed to compete, but if we can develop a unique USP around care tech alongside health tech, we'll be doing something that's immediately beneficial to communities to be inclusive. So that's kind of where I would see from an ethics, is just being thoughtful in the sorts of industry we engage with and how we want to make best use of our facilities and the funding that's coming.
That's brilliant. And that's business brains for social gains as
There
well.
you go.
And it's making sure that there's the equitable element within there. Thank you. You're on fire then. If I can put the question to yourself as well and to each of us, I think we need to look inward as well,
Okay.
if that's okay.
So, I mean, for us, and I guess, for me in particular, what I'm really keen is that, we embed ethics across the whole cycle. Ethics by design, when we're putting these solutions together, we don't just, use the data, any data we can get hold of blind. We actually take that data in, we ingest it, we assess it, we work out whether there's any elements in it that are not appropriate, whether there are elements that are biased, anything like that. Flag those up, put those out of the system, and enable you to build your solutions, from solid foundations with the data. And then, in terms of, the governance, trying to understand how best to make sure that you've got guardrails in such that the solutions that come out don't get, downstream problems. So it's across the board. We have to put ethics into what we're doing. And certainly for us, that's been a key element in terms of, like I say, we build our own AI products, and those are embedded in the solutions as we build them. But when we deploy those solutions, again, you don't just take something out of the box. You actually try and understand, the challenges as you move it forward. So it's all the way through, and it's probably one of the most interesting but challenging areas to make sure that you don't, let things in through a side door or something like that. Make sure everything is put in there. Now, you can look at things such as, say, if you've got an app on your phone that recommends restaurants, and it's got an AI power base in it or something like that, are you actually too worried if, it gives you a restaurant that isn't particularly good? Probably not. But, if it was something that was, selecting people for a job, and you were just going to treat it blind, then clearly you would not be able to do that without understanding what decisions are being made, how they're being made, and how you can actually pass these things across. Transparency, all of these things have to be built in.
So almost a night watchman, if you will, built into the system to a degree.
Yeah, I think I say, we certainly are, our product is What's Next. I mean, for those of you that go back a few years, you remember we had this system called Watson that played humans at a game called Jeopardy and won, thankfully, because it went out live on TV. But, we've built on from that, and we've actually now, hardened it and put it into this What's Next product. But all of those lessons learned are things that we've been building into things. Some of them are simple. If we're talking about some of the medical applications, when we did some first early work with the Watson set, somebody asked the question, okay, so what kills most people? And the answer that came back was the word redacted. And everyone's going, well, what's going on there? As it turns out, a huge number of diseases are named after either patients or doctors that discovered them. So rules that we put in place to strip out all of the personal information had stripped out all the names of the diseases. So, all of those things that, come from, really applying these things and understanding them before you let them loose in the wild. And that's really what we've been about since we started.
With you saying in the wild, I've just casting my mind back 25 years as sort of the internet become of more prominence to the general public, and it was perceived at that time as a Wild West that was coming. There was a millennium bug sort of 5 years in the future and what have you, but there was a real nervousness. But yet that Wild West, essentially tools came, not necessarily say to tame it, but to work with that Wild West. Do you think it'll be a similar type of evolution from an AI perspective?
I hope not. I mean, I actually hope that we're getting it right first time. We're getting to a level where we can just, tweaks around the edges, but, we need to get this stuff right. Because, some of the decisions people want to make on these things are important. I mean, at a personal level, at even as a minimum, you need to make sure you get it right.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. And to my left.
Okay, so absolutely governance frameworks are really, really important around this ethical agenda, and it is important for Hartree, and we will be looking in our strategy over the next 5 years of how do we support businesses in doing that. One of the things I want to highlight, I think, that to add on to what colleagues have already said, is that an algorithm doesn't have context, an algorithm doesn't think, it just goes out, gets the data, whatever that data is, and then splurges it out. Without that context, that information can be very, very wrong and can be very inciting all sorts of adverse behaviour. We've already mentioned how Watson stripped out all the names that Peter was talking about, but you can have very similar things because it's not thinking about, well, that's the context. So until we get machines that can start to understand context, and that's why we're very excited about neuromorphics, because there is this theory that neuromorphic chips could bring in that context to decision making. Always remember that AI is a tool. It is not a replacement for thinking, for us to think.
Yeah, it's to complement the human.
It complements, absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're not AI developers as Unilever, so I think you'd then say, in the application of AI, you fall back to the code of business principles that you know and love, and there's a lot of safeguards already in there about bad business practice that we would absolutely rely on anyway. And then what you stand for as a business in the world. So, if your mission is to make sustainable living commonplace, you're not going to use AI to push forward anything that doesn't do that. So I think you've got a lot of good businesses have already got really good groundings that you can simply apply to this territory and realise what's right and what's wrong. So I think if your business fundamentals are sound, you're going to do the right things. There could always be unintended consequences, but at least you start from the fundamentals in a good place. One thing I just was immediately triggered when you asked that question. The Reith Lectures, I think it was last year, by Stuart Russell. If anybody wants a good grounding on AI business ethics and AI ethics, that's a really good read. It's a famous series of lectures every year. I think Oppenheimer did them one year, but Stuart Russell's set is brilliant on this.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you. Perhaps we might be able to share that if there's a circular after that, just a little bit of a reading list. And just on that note, sort of just as we start to bring things to conclusion, do you think it would be helpful for business, for your business in particular, if there was some government guidance?
I think, yes, we would always welcome government guidance.
with relation to AI.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think the thing with government guidance is it's how you implement it, and it's giving people support. It's no point putting out loads and loads of documents to expect companies, large, small, just starting, to understand that. The organisations like Hartree, like IBM, where we're helping support people on this digital transformation journey, need to support government with putting out guidance that is followable, and then helping those organisations putting in those good practices. But as John says, a lot of companies already do think ethically about what they're doing, and it should be an extension of that.
So I would pitch in from a medicines and medical devices perspective on the regulatory front. So having been intimately involved in supporting politicians and in the House of Lords and the House of Commons around the current medicines and medical devices bill, it was very clear to me from a personal experience that we put a lot of expectation on our politicians that they are as expert as people here and people within the Civic Health Innovation Labs back at the university. So it's challenging for them to create the guidance and the rules, and they're going to continually pull on people's advice and guidance in creating the rules and the guidance. So we have to be mindful, I think, of who is getting access to those people when those guidelines are being drawn up. And I think it's very difficult with new and emergent technologies anyway, because there's a very significant risk that we squash innovation. So we've rapidly put in place, as a result of very long speeches during that process, in fact, Bill Committee, there are now emergent guidelines with a roadmap, but that's taken 5 years. So we still don't know quite, we don't want to squash innovation, we don't want to dampen economic growth potential from these technologies, but we are also clear that we don't want to kill people either. And we have that real risk when it comes to medical devices and the use of algorithms in health and social care. We have entered into trade deals in the last 3 or 4 years, having left the European Union, with, for example, Japan, if you look at the digital trade chapter. And you'll see there that we are permitted now to import black box algorithms from the Far East, but we're not allowed to open them up to test was that what did harm if we've procured and adopted them, because that's a trade secret. I'm hoping the Korean deal is better and has different kind of outcomes in the similar chapters, but that is the sort of thing that we need to be mindful of as a city, region, as a nation, is what are we importing and how do we trust what we're importing, because this is a matter of life and death potentially when we're talking about the life sciences and health tech sector.
Absolutely, and I guess it's not relevant to this conversation, but it's just going through my mind with regards to some of the principles that we used to look to from blockchain with regards to verifying the quality or auditing what's come along from there. So that's it with regards to from the wider panel questions direct, but we're going to open up now to yourselves for 5 minutes and just see, have we got any questions out in the audience? So would anybody like to ask a question? Young lady at the front.
Young lady, I like that.
Yeah, we're in that.
I'd just like to come in on what you said about the black boxes coming over from Japan.
I think there are probably two schools of thought from my perspective. So one would be if you're checking out the Russian elections at the weekend, there seemed to be an inordinate number of cyber attacks last week and into the weekend that coincided. One of those was the... Yeah, one of those was the third largest healthcare provider in the United States, and they paid an enormous sum in ransom money to release that data, to get reattach themselves to their own data, in fact, because it was quarantined. So there is to some extent, I think we have to accept that some genie is already out of the bottle, or to some extent, and to the extent that we are now seeing recruitment companies and others, for example, in some countries, using your social media data wild in the open, where you've been typing away for 10 years, to decide whether or not you are a suitable person to give a job interview to. That's already trying to interpret whether or not you are somebody who is trustworthy, will turn up, will be off sick, tends to write in the middle of the night, might have certain problems. Bing, bing, bing. So we're seeing bias in recruitment practices using these data samples already. So I think you're quite right to some extent that we should be very concerned. But on the other hand, it might already be out of the bottle. So the question is, do we have an obligation to make the very best use of that information? If some large companies, which I won't name in the United States, have been taking large amounts of my photographs and personal rantings to family for many years, where are the good products to come out of that in terms of how they might be benefiting communities and individuals' health and so forth, if they know stuff that we're all trying to discover now with new technologies already? it's sort of incumbent on us to make the most of that data, I think. We do have a duty, if not an obligation, to make use of these technologies to care for people. So there's a balance, I think.
That's great. Thank you. Great answer. Great question. Thank you. I think I saw a hand up there. Gentleman at the back.
Thank you. What should be the equivalent of the 3 laws of robotics in relation to AI?
I'll look to my learned colleagues to my right, first of all, if you forgive me for that.
I do quite like the 3 laws of robotics, so I'd probably start with them.
Thank you. I think you were slightly first. You pipped to the post, and then we'll come to yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of scaremongering with AI and doomsday scenarios, and how do you tackle that from reassuring the public around the rate of development of this technology and and all these doomsday sayers that are out there around AI?
I think you come to the point where every scientific invention, new technology has come with a balance of it can be used in one way or it can be used in another way. And where AI, quantum, is exactly the same. There are fantastic opportunities, and hopefully we can develop a community where using it for the right reasons to benefit humankind and to benefit our planet and our environment is what we take forward. There will always be people that will misuse things, and we have got to try and work very, very hard to try and stop that from happening. However, if we don't do any work on AI, the only people that will be using it will be the people that won't be using it in the ways that we would like them to be using it.
I think I just reinforce that point. What we're trying to do with Hartree is to make sure that we get the good examples out there that can blaze a trail and allow people to follow. And the quicker we can move those good examples out there, I think that gives us an edge.
I'm going to answer the question with a question. Do we think that it's worth considering that we have in the country for a period of time, as we're getting used to the principle and from adopting into there, we've almost got an AI czar of sorts, or other descriptions might be available, but somebody who's actually a national lead for a period of time, who's not just necessarily the oracle, but has got the ear of all of those involved and just says, this is the AI characteristic as we see it in this nation. So that's my answer in the question with the question there.
I'd suggest the challenge at the moment is that we have a large number of people who think that the AI is
yeah. And there's probably a computer that thinks it as well. Okay, I think you were going to ask a question there. Thank you.
Yeah, mine was kind of a corollary of that, and also follows on from your friends and family question. Just to ask the panel if what one thing could or should we do or do more or do better in the UK, or particularly the Liverpool city region, to get today's primary school children more inquisitive and curious about emerging technologies, whether as a career or, but particularly around technology, because that's not wholly, but that's partly the answer to the trust thing. If everyone's got a stake in it and they're bought into it, and one bit of a facile question, but one thing.
I think it's a belting final question. That.
Yeah, I mean, really, I'd follow up on that to say that I got a guy who used to work with me, a guy called Dale Lane, who built AI systems using Scratch for primary school children, and has been incredibly successful in rolling that out. What's for him has been the most interesting thing is that the kids get it straight away. The teachers take a bit of time to come on board, but it's really you can start at any age really, and he certainly for year ones in primary schools has a sort of like a training package that people can pick up on. And as Dale's one of these nice people, it's out there and it's not charged, it's free. So people can just pick it up.
Brilliant.
I got one for you, John. So remember we worked on the Living Hospital with it was Hartree and the Alder Hospital. And the idea really was for the hospital to become a warm, friendly interface that would help to look after the kids during the treatment periods. I don't know what became of it actually, but you could imagine generating something like that. So the Living School, that equivalent, where maybe if we could get somebody to come up with a concept, and perhaps there is an idea there that all schools in Merseyside could have an AI interface that was the living school that helped with education. What would it take to do that? That's probably moving the earth and beyond, but as a concept, we could why don't we have a look at what we did with...
Trial it.
Absolutely.
Good for...
I love it.
Sorry.
I think we've got to remember that a child by the age of 7 has made a decision almost in which way it's going to go, whether it's going to go into sciences or into arts. And often they say if we haven't imprinted that by 7, you've lost them. So it's about role models in schools, highlighting the excitement of data literacy, of AI, of mathematics, because those are the core skills that they're going to need to go forward. And if they can't see that it's exciting, why would they want to move into it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to sort of endorse your point and just to draw this to a close, over in Lancashire, over the border, which my accent might give me away, that is where I'm based from. So 2 companies there. There's one called Jam Coding. They've actually gone national now. But Jam Coding, very big on getting kids into coding at school. Now, that's not a quantum leap for that to go from that to understanding AI. Equally, there's a lady called Sue Skurlock who runs something called Primary Engineer, some of you may have heard of. I get national campaigns that she runs there. And that's about getting engineering and computer engineering, sort of getting the cogs whirring at a very early age with children and taking them through the journey as well, and really trying to help them be the best that they can be. They're just 2 examples off the top of my head. There will be lots throughout the country. So I think there's some fantastic vehicles and facilitators to get people doing the great stuff. I want to thank the panel, please, for all contributions, all thoughts that we've had on there. Can we have a round of applause, please, for the panel?